Team Story Cup Season 3 qualifiers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a best of 9 between these two teams. Tied up now 1-1, but a best of 1 between the individual players. Winner stays on and the loser has to get the heck out. We'll talk about the resurrection rule in a moment, but for now, spawning in the top left corner of the map for the second time today, but the first time in this series, is going to be the Red Zerg player from mYinsanity, Serral.
And in the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, it is ToD.
Now, to explain the resurrection rule I was talking about before, guys, a lot of you probably saw Season 1 and Season 2 of the ATC Story Cup, and there's a lot of fun parts of it that they've kept involved. They've cut out some, so they got rid of the Joker rule, for example. There's been some discussion about that, but the Jokers are technically not here for Season 3, but the resurrection rule has been the same as it was for Season 2, where you cannot resurrect a player in the middle of the series, but only on your last life. So, like, let's say in a worst case scenario, mYinsanity is on game number 5, or game number 4, sorry, they've lost 4 games in a row, and they're on their last life. That's when they can bring Stardust back, that's when they can bring Serral back, that's when they can bring back their heavy hitters. But I kind of feel XMG is going to be one of the tougher teams for mYinsanity to take on, because they've got players that just kind of not only are good. I don't want to talk down on anybody or group them in with their race or like call ToD Protoss by any means, but the reality is it's all Protoss and Zerg players. There's not a single Terran on XMG's roster, so it's not going to be very easy for mYinsanity to overcome this with simply Stardust and Joxi alone.
Well, ToD showed really good PvP, right? And I think, I don't actually know for sure, but I want to say it's his strongest matchup. Seems to know a lot about it, and he's certainly very excited when he casts it. How is his PvZ though?
That's kind of what I want to talk about before we get into the actual game here, where if this goes to Swarm hosts, ToD is going to lose. And I'm not saying this because I'm discounting ToD right away. When he did the Go for Story Cup not too long ago versus Snoot, who did Swarm host, of course, one of the biggest issues was as ToD left the game, it was also in a very, let's call it, unhappy fashion, with some non-happy emotions being expressed. So, I mean, when you're at that point in the game, like for Terran players, we've seen this happen too, versus Protoss, where if you just hate a certain way that a race plays so much, you're just setting yourself up for defeat mentally before you get into it. And a lot of the time when players talk about mental defeats or mentality of players, guys, honestly, a lot of the time it's just kind of small talk, whatever. But the reality is when it comes to Swarm hosts, they've put the community in such a bad way that it does actually affect gameplay.
It does. Definitely does. I'm not sure we'll be seeing that though. Yeah,
Serral's not really the Swarm host go-to guy like Stefano per se, but this is a map where Swarm hosts are, it's not like Habitation Station. You can't attack 5 different bases with one Swarm host nest, and a big part of that's because of how big and spread out Alterzim is. With 20 freaking bases, even if you take all 5 in your corner of the map, Swarm hosts burrowed right in the middle won't reach all 5 of them.
Yeah, this is definitely not the map I would expect Swarm hosts on. And Serral, I feel, maybe it's my bias because he did play Jaedong, and that's like what I identify him with or whatever, but I feel like he's a little more aggressive than, you know, like Snoot, for instance.
Yeah, this, like I said, this very passive ways of playing Zerg players. There's a very aggressive way of playing as a Zerg player. Bly would be the embodiment of aggressive, and Snoot, in my opinion, would be the embodiment of passive when it comes to those sort of two definitions. But this probe, unfortunately, going to go down.
It tried.
First blood.
A for effort.
Yes.
Some Zerglings who die, or almost were going to die to the Mothership Core. They do manage to dart away. Of course, that's the other thing about Alterzim, guys. A lot of the times as a Zerg player, you end up being able to harass your opponent's natural a little bit. Even though there's usually the wall down with the force fields, you've got something to slam the Zerglings against. On Alterzim, unfortunately, it's just terrain and a ramp and a very bad choke to attack into. So there's no real direct attack route that you can take. Now, what was it? We saw Bly on this map, actually, not just in the Show My Shares cast recently, making a great use of, like, Nidus Roaches, which it sounds almost joking to bring that up right now, guys, but Nidus Worms are really difficult to deal with. Even if you see them coming, sometimes they can still just shut you down, because if you can get all your Roaches across the map as the same way as, like, a Warpin mechanic, early on, they tend to be pretty good at bullying down Stockings.
Even though this map is really big, the actual bases aren't really nice for Niduses, unlike, you know, Heavy Rain, where there's like 4 blank spots where you can Nidus. But as far as like actually putting one in front, like with Ling Hydras, for instance, and Queens, it's really good. We haven't seen that since, mass air openers was the way to go, but still very powerful. We do see Serral doing something a little different than most other roaches, Zergs, and that his Roach Reborn was like really, really early. I think it was at 6 minutes or just a little bit before, and he gets a quicker layer as well. That one was also started around 6:30. Not the quickest possible, but still quicker than the usual. Usually the Zerg, if they really want to be greedy, they'll like wait until 7:15 for the Roach Warren, to even start it.
Mushroom Core did get this quite a good chunk of health off this hatchery. If this had been like ToD doing like the 3 Nexus 7 Zealot Warping attack, this would have killed it absolutely and entirely.
Well, could still do that. 3 Nexus.
Well,
7.
he doesn't have any pylons across the map, right? I mean, he can
Recently
walk.
to 3rd Nexus. He has time. He has time.
Well, Overlord's being made right now, as well as +1 ranged weapons being invested into. Roaches early on like this are not a problem. I mean, roaches generically are going to kind of cover your way throughout the Protoss matchup, whether they use for buffer or for run-bys. They're cheap units that, quite frankly, can get a lot of damage done, but they can't really take head-on engagements, and especially not with force fields cutting them down.
Yeah. Well, Serral is now starting to really amp up those drones. I feel like the Roach Warren is just because he was, a little afraid as to what ToD would be doing. So it takes you a long time to get your overlords in position to suicide. We do see the infestation bit go down, but along with Roach Speed and a Hydralisk Den.
Yeah, so I was kind of getting happy there for a second, but I think this is going to be a lot less for something like Swarm Host and more for like quicker Vipers.
Yes, I think so. Exactly. I think it is going to be for quick Vipers. Now, ToD does see it. He sees the infestation pits. He does not see the Hydralisk Den, so to him, this could still be Swarm Host. Although,
did he really not see the Hydra? No, he saw the infestation pit. Oh no, you're right. Hydra Den, right? Where's that?
Oh, he did see the Hydralisk Den? It's in the natural.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, well, never mind. So yeah, I'm fairly certain he's thinking maybe quick hive. He'll want to go back in and check, but you can guess right now. And that's exactly what it is.
It's... Actually, I think it would have been hilarious if he did miscout it and this did look like Swarm Host, because you have to prepare for Swarm Host the same way you would against Hydralisks anyway. The difference is, of course, you get that sort of like, oh god, really, sort of involved when Swarm Hosts are represented, but Hydralisk being revealed now, for sure, even if you didn't see the Hydra Den, which you did, of course. We got the faster Hive, so we are going to have those Vipers out really quick. And the reality is, guys, Vipers, it's not about the Blinding Clouds. In fact, you rarely see Blinding Clouds used to great effect versus Protoss anyways. Stalkers blink out of it, and Sentries just force field units away from them. But they're the Abducts. Those are going to be key. Whether it's even just abducting Sentries, it's free units.
Serral got a very good scout just now with an Overseer, and what we, even focusing a lot on the Zerg, ToD is actually not getting Colossus. In fact, he's not even getting High Templars right now. I think he's going to go for an attack with just gateway units. He has a lot more gateways that he just pumped up right now.
Why a cannon here, though?
Hold on, I can think of it. Hold on.
I mean, maybe catch another Overlord, another Scout or something?
I don't know.
Okay, well, it's a strange thing to see. Maybe just helping for defensive later if he needs it for the extra attack. But anyways, Vipers on the way for Serral, and this is kind of something that gets worrisome for ToD, because reality is, guys, as a Zerg player, you're very rarely afforded this opportunity where you can just go straight Roach Hydra and Vipers, all with little to no opposition. I mean, the Templars is going to be key. Getting feedbacks off of the Vipers, making sure they can't abduct anything, great. There's also no big targets like a Colossus for them to abduct. But whether it's a Colossus that's being abducted, a Sentry that's being abducted, or Blinding Clouds going down, these Vipers are going to be incredibly effective as they complement Hydralisk so nicely.
Yeah, and Roach Hydra is just a good composition against gateway-only armies. Unless you get very good force fields down, for instance, or I guess a really massive upgrade lead, which he doesn't. It's going to be 2 versus probably 2 of Serral's. ToD might do something with these DTs, though. I mean, might do something big. There is not a whole lot of detection, not a lot of spore crawlers, not a lot of defense in general, actually. So if he just, warps in 4, sends them to every single place, he might be able to do something.
Let's not forget, too, Hydras were buffed recently. They do a ton of attacks. Like, they do a lot of damage now, guys. Not that they didn't before, but they attack even faster, which, again, you abduct into them, they're going to kill something that much quicker. But the Vipers are here. There's a Dark Templar run by here towards the 4th base. Well, there's 5 in total. He's taking this one over here as well, but splitting them off in every direction. Of course, Serral unfortunately has everything across the map. There's a Spore Crawler at home, sure, but I mean, a Queen's going to only hold so much. This actually is going to force a full withdrawal. Wow. Entire army coming back home.
Yeah, a little unfortunate. He could have hit ToD pretty hard at this army, but he does have to pull back as the War Prism's also helping out here, and that's definitely, he needs to pull back for this. He's going to lose a lot of drones. Already down to about 50, 28 workers. Now 30 workers have been killed by ToD. This did enormous amounts of damage.
I'm surprised Serral didn't just pull his drones to like this third base or something. I mean, there's no reason for him to have just left them there sitting to die, but natural base goes down when this happens too, so the actual hatchery physically dies. Fourth base under assault by some zealots now. This is not going to let up anytime soon either. And this is, okay, this was talking about before though, like ToD had kind of been sitting back very passive. He allowed Serral to get to this sort of hive tech very quickly, but he's making up for that difference now through multi-pronged attacks, and I really like that.
ToD really got himself back into this game. I mean, his composition isn't still the greatest. Well, actually, no, he has a lot of Immortals because he never got Colossus, so it's actually still pretty good against this Ultralist transition, and the Ultralists aren't going to be upgraded either. Serral?
Well, I mean,
think...
let's be honest, Ultras don't need a lot of upgrades. Give them chitinous plating,
Well,
and usually they're good to go.
I mean, I guess so, but, you know, Serral was really, I think, planning on a...
Those some ducks.
Yeah, the ducks. A plan that was like, I'm gonna have such a good economy and have you so pinned back to 3 base, maybe 4, that I can do tech switches and really surprise you. Unfortunately, with the DTs and the harassment that went around, Serral no longer has the, you know, convenience of maybe messing up on a tech switch. You know, maybe losing 6 Ultras and going in a Roach Hydra instead. He doesn't have that.
Yeah, the Ultras, if ToD wasn't sure that they were out there, just rebuilding with that War Prism too. This hatchery lives to see another day, but not for long, as there's still that pylon over here. And it's actually in clear view of the Overlord. I'm surprised Serral isn't cleaning this up.
Our forces are under
Actually, he
attack.
sees both of these pylons. There we go, small Roach squad to clean that up. But okay, Archons being made, we got Immortals being made. These are perfect units to counter the genericness of what Serral has. The problem is, Immortals, as good as they are, they can be abducted very easily. They can also be blinded, clouded upon. ToD is going to have to be so precise with these Templar. And it's important too he doesn't lose too many of them, because he's also going to need the storm damage for the Hydralisks.
Oh, Lucian Phoenix goes in here and sees everything. Gonna make sure to feed back those Vipers where they can abduct or blinding cloud.
This army from Serral looks really small.
It does look really small, that is true. I don't know where he's max. I don't know where it is.
Blinding clouds go down like crazy. A lot of feedbacks did go down too, and some storms going to catch a lot of the Roaches, but not the Hydralisk, sadly. The Ultras also being driven back. That's quite a large immortal count. They're actually getting screwed over by pathing pretty hard there.
Yeah, dumb Ultralisk. Some of his army did go off to the 4th and is trying to cancel it. In fact,
nice
they do
cancel.
cancel it.
Gets a couple cannons too on the way out. Dark Templar will eventually clean this up. Sadly, Serral has no burrow though, so he can't heal and he can't stay around for a harass later on. But in full retreat, he doesn't actually have a lot home in terms of defense. He's maxed out in supply, but where is the army?
I am seriously bewildered as to where the army is. Even when you take into account the eggs that are about to hatch, that's still not a lot.
I guess the Ultras just eat up so much more than it looks like, but him on the front lines, he doesn't have the Immortals here initially, allows the Ultras to engage a little bit more effectively than they otherwise would have. The Archon actually was down like nothing at all, but with just Immortals left, if he gets enough Hydralisks, Serral can certainly hold this, but it's not going to be easy. The Hydralisks are already being taken out. Good game. Got rough at the end.
I'm not going to say Serral was going to bully ToD over with that attack that he was prepping for, because I don't think he was, but it was just, it went from like even